Welcome back. Well, all through the day, you've seen the celebrations, the commemorations around Workers' Day. Politicians from the governing party standing with workers' groups like Cosatu, which of course is part of the tripartite alliance. But there may be questions to ask about whether workers and people who want to be workers, people who are currently unemployed, are being properly served by some of these stages, some of the events that we've seen today. Dr Ebrahim Harvey is a political analyst, also spent much of his life in the Labour movement. Dr Harvey, good afternoon to you. And we've seen several speeches today. The President was speaking. Are these important events, these Workers' Day events, or is there a risk that for some people they just look like a sort of empty ritual?
Yeah, good afternoon, Stephen. Thanks for this opportunity, and good afternoon to your viewers. No, historically, traditionally, Labor Day is a very important day. Although if you look globally at what has happened, the significance of this day around the world has declined, and it has declined in inverse proportion to the decline of the labor movement. Trade unions are in trouble for 2-3 decades already. South Africa is no exception. But what complicates things in South Africa, much more probably than in any other country, is the relationship between the biggest trade union federation, still the Congress of South African Trade Unions, Cosatu, and the ruling party. In fact, I have, in many columns, articles, traced the decline of the Cosatu directly to its relationship to the ANC in that alliance. I recall when I still had a Mail and Guardian column, I, regularly tore into this issue and accused Cosatu of being little more than electoral cannon fodder for the ANC. But there's the significance of Labor Day this year is greater than, I think, in earlier years, because this alliance is in bigger trouble, I believe, than ever before. The decline of the trade unions also generally is very important, and which is probably why you're interviewing me, is my News 24 column last week, calling attention. I didn't go too much into Labor Day, which was a week later. I went into the fact that with these elections, probably the most crucial, important elections in post-apartheid South Africa, there is no socialist voice party at all. Well, after the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party, never registered. They were in the 2019 elections, got less than 1%, the NUMSA-based. It was really disgraceful because NUMSA is the biggest affiliate of the South African Federation of Trade Unions as well, in Zimavavi. And not even NUMSA's members came out to vote for the party. So they got less than 1%. But I thought what they will do is to draw the lessons, Stephen, and register and participate in this 2024 because it's so crucially important. They didn't. And the other party is AMCU, the split from NUM that gave Joseph Matunja's AMCU, the Labour Party. And they registered also very late, and one would have thought they would have learned from 2009 because the NUSA-based party also registered too late, and you see what happened. And the latest that I have is that, AMCU has referred this matter. They've had a lot of battles with the IEC to the Constitutional Court, and I might be wrong, but the Constitutional Court has not yet ruled on this thing. Because one of the minority judgments was sympathetic to the reasons that Matunja gave about why they didn't, provide the electoral nominations in time because of problems with IT and workers not understanding the processes properly. But Stephen, just to conclude before you put any further questions to me, the most important thing I think they should have done, the trade unions, and I didn't hear it, I listened to some of the speeches and rallies and so on today, was to have, it's critical, Stephen, that we have a socialist voice, a party that enters the elections in this country. Look at how this mushroom of parties, and not one of them, except for the Labour Party, AMCU, you can say has an explicit socialist working class program that speaks to the needs and interests of the majority black working class. So they should have used today to reflect on what is happening in the trade union movement and why is it that they cannot get their act together to present a formidable force, which is what their constituency, I think, objectively requires, that they participate in these elections. And except for, Cosatu,
Sure.
its links with the ANC, there's no other socialist party, which is what gave rise to last week's column, Stephen.
Dr. Harvey, could this be in a way a failure of organization? And let me explain what I mean. That politics is often, I think Hillary Clinton says, elections are won by people who turn up. But elections are also won by people who are organized. And there's plenty of experience of this. To put it another way, if every person who is unemployed and wants a job in this country voted, that party would probably have a 2/3 majority in Parliament. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I think I can justify that. The reason that they don't vote is because no such party exists, and that's partially because it's very, very hard to organize among people who are unemployed, and I think there are plenty of examples of that too. And are we not looking really at a sort of crisis of organization, which maybe is, the problem with the Labour Party from AMCU and the problem with the Socialist Revolutionary Party from NUMSA, is that people just haven't been able to organize themselves. And I remember very clearly, as Newzroom Afrika Harvey has said many times, these things are about organization.
No, organization is one of the reasons, the lack of organization. There's a crisis in that same column. I argued that, in fact, it's a reflection of the crisis of leadership on all fronts that we never had and we still don't have a working class party. I mean, look what has happened to the South African Communist Party. And then Cosatu throwing in its lot with the ANC. And now again, though they've been left reeling, if you look at the relationship with the ruling party since 1994, that is the key and critical thing, is to go beyond. It's much more than an organizational crisis. And the fact that you have almost 11 million unemployed people. You've just mentioned it. What is the crux of why they should be participating? Have an independent. One had hoped that, at one stage, Cosatu said they were going to back the SACP in these elections, almost as a threat to the ANC to say, get your house in order and take us more seriously. It never worked. And that is the thing. It's a multiplicity of factors, the lack of organization or organizational crisis is linked to the leadership crisis. It's not separate, Stephen. So, but all in all, really, it's just sad that they didn't reflect on this state of affairs today from what I've heard. And this is the big problem, Stephen. One would have thought that on Labor Day, they would have pulled their heads together and come up with some tentative way forward about getting, a socialist party to enter the elections. Because I tell you something, the trend of it, I don't think Cosatu will still continue to vote for the ANC in the following elections. And the SACP has never stepped forward to be, it's supposed to have, from 1994, the SACP, Stephen, is supposed to have come forward as the leading force of the alliance, in terms of this two-stage,
sure.
And nothing. They don't even participate or mobilize or organize people in the townships, around basic services.
Sure.
So it's a very dismal situation, Stephen.
And there's the whole Metsamaholo thing, but that seems to have faded away that the SACP was involved in. But I take your major point, Dr. Harvey. Is there another thing happening in our politics that all of this relates to? And it's a quote you hear very often in our politics nowadays, that the old is dying and the new is not yet born. And one of the things of that quote is it really points to leaders kind of not knowing what's coming next. And so we have the speeches we saw today, the Cosatu president standing with the president, Cosatu backing the ANC into another election, possibly into 2029. And isn't that because actually we're still waiting, as you say, workers, unemployed people, are waiting for the new. You would like that to be a socialist new, but we don't see what the new is yet. And isn't that one of the problems?
But that's precisely the immense frustration and the terrible, almost betrayal kind of thing of what Urban Jim and the socialists, I mean, he's the leader of this party. And, because they at loggerheads, him and Harvey have a historical conflictual relationship, I attribute it, I did a lot of columns on this thing, to this terrible relationship between Harvey and Jim. But that was supposed to be the beacon of hope for the labor movement, because Cosatu doesn't want to break its links with the ruling party. And look what happened to the, Jim's party. I mean, as I said, I thought they will draw the lessons from what went wrong in 2019 and armed with that, enter the 2024 elections, and they didn't even register. And you can see it doesn't seem like the Labour Party of AMPU is going to get its act together. And I don't know why they didn't learn from NUMSA and the SWRP in 2019. Part of the reason for NUMSA's failure, there are a lot of other reasons, is that they also got formed and entered the elections. I mean, it's just a few months before the 2019 they started to organize. It was too late, and AMCO has done the same thing. But Stephen, let me tell you, the biggest reason for the problems we sit with is Cosatu. That is the biggest. It was the mightiest trade union federation probably in the history of South Africa, and at one stage the fastest growing trade union in the world. Cosatu was right on top. Then look at what a pale shadow of the past they are today. Really having an obsequious relationship with the ruling party and not getting tired of it, and probably because the SACP is, together with the ANC all along. So if the SACP had become more independent, and assertive of their relationship with the ANC, maybe that would have caused this party, the Cosatu, to take a tougher stance in relation to the ANC, and they haven't. And so it's a sad day for me that Labor Day, I've not seen any of the trade unions really putting their heads together and trying to, and even talking. I mean, even Cosatu. So you see the Ramaphosa with the Cosatu leader, this is what they do, the rituals every election, Stephen. It's the same things, that you see, and they don't get tired of it. And workers who are looking for leadership, let me tell you, there are workers in Cosatu, in every trade union federation, who is yearning for a unity of the federations, to unite the working class, into a single federation. And you can see they can't even get their act together to enter the elections. Again, 2024, another opportunity lost.
Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, thank you, political analyst, and as you can tell, someone who knows a lot about the labour movement as well, and always a strong opinion. Really appreciate the time.